You may not be aware of this, but occasionally web browsing introduces certain security risks to the folks that are doing the browsing. And one of the things that you may hear of is something called cross-site scripting, and where basically bad things can happen accessing resources across from one DNS domain to another. And so by default, typically, when you go to a site, operations against other sites are locked down. Certain things you can do, but many things you can't do. That can actually be overridden, and you can allow that through something called cross-origin resource sharing. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this, okay, but this is a functionality that is supported by Azure Storage, right? And you can set up and you can allow CORS, or again, cross-origin resource sharing, at the service level. So you have to turn this on for different services within storage. So you can allow it, for example, for blob storage and not allow it for table storage if that's the architecture you want to go with. So what does this allow us to do? Right? Well, by default, as I said, browsers and security policies restrict any type of request that could be dangerous. Right? And CORS is actually an industry standard. It's actually a W3C recommendation standard that extends the HTTP request and response, and it adds additional requests and response to the overall process of a page. So if you're implementing this in addition to, say, requesting the page, that page comes in and it's going to make additional requests to make sure that essentially it's okay to do this. Okay? And there are two requests that occur as part of this standard. There's what's called the pre-flight request and the actual. So I pull up a page from one domain that needs to or wants to support this CORS over to, let's say, my domain. So I pull up from domain abc.com a page, and it's requesting a resource that's on my domain xyz.com. Okay? And then it's going to make, the browser is then responsible for making these calls, first to make sure it's okay to do this, and then to make the call to actually retrieve whatever that resource is. Okay, now, within your storage account, CORS is off by default and it's an opt-in. And you set rules to define, very important, what origins you're going to allow to call in, what methods, and also any additional header information that you're going to use to restrict this capability as really, again, if you will, kind of a destination or a content source that's being called from some origin. Let's take a look at an example of a CORS rule. Okay, now this is, as you can tell, a block of XML, and this is something that would be done through the API right now. Okay, you're not going to find this, at least at the time I'm recording this, in the portal. By the time you watch it, there may be something they've migrated and given you an interface for it. But for now, if you want to implement this, you would add a CORS rule programmatically, and it's not a major thing, so I'm not going to go too far down that road. Okay, but you can see that, okay, I've got a CORS element, and I'm going to add this, by the way, to the properties of my service. And then within the CORS element, I've got a CORS rule. CORS rule has what origins are allowed, and that's going to be a comma separated. So this is going to allow from contoso.com and fabricam.com. What methods are we going to allow? Put and get. Okay, additional headers. So anything that's within this set of headers is going to be allowed. Okay, it's going to possibly expose these headers, and it's going to have a max age from the initial request of 200 seconds. So that's really what CORS does, or how it's implemented, at least within the Azure environment. Again, this is a storage thing, and so typically it's going to be requested from some other domain to come in and pull content from your domain, and this defines whether or not you allow it.